Hey guys, my name is Mr. Stitz and welcome to today's video on Cyberpunk Red. Stay tuned for more. So we'll be looking at Cyberpunk Red one shot that I made, special delivery. You can download the PDF for free in the description below, or you can go to our website at potospr.com where you find other one shots and other blog posts related to Cyberpunk Red and other tabletop games. Also, I'll be looking at my laptop in front of me, so if I'm looking up and down, to you guys and to the laptop, I'm sorry, so I can't help it. So going forward with the one shot, page 4, you're going to be looking at the synopsis, background, and interest. The synopsis will tell you a brief description on what the one shot entails. The background. So I probably didn't explain myself too well on what the heck is the background. Basically, the background is just the behind the scenes of what's occurring throughout the story. The GM obviously will know what's going to be happening, while the players won't know unless they ask other NPCs or force other NPCs to say certain things. Is pretty much what the GM will know, while the players will not know. And for the interests, these are different interests that you can bring players to your one-shot or campaign. I usually put 3 to 4 interests on these one-shots. It could all depend on the adventure or the story. So the synopsis of this one-shot entails of a fixer called Caller. Caller has a chip that needs to be sent to Club Atlantis, so that Trucker can help him decrypt the chip and gain the information inside of it. So Caller is looking for mercenaries or edgerunners that could help him with this endeavor. It's a courier type of job where the PCs or the players will be sending this chip to Trucker. It may sound pretty simple enough, but there's always trouble in Night City. So going towards Club Atlantis, the PCs will have to engage with some lawmen. One of the lawmen has some information from Corporal Exec and Militech. So this Corporal Exec and Militech got some information that someone hacked into their systems and got some information out of them. So it looks like some people were helping him out, and now he hired the lawman to get Trucker and then Caller. That's pretty much the essence of the story or the one shot. At the end of the one shot, it ends up with a car chase with the lawman, and then the PCs will engage with some boostergangers they would have to attempt to escape or zero them. So now for the interests, these are not you don't really have to use these are just information or interests, as they're called, that you could use to bring in other players for this one shot or for your campaign that you're running. You could always use screen sheets. That's always a good thing to use, that Cyberpunk Red has been using a lot. Interest number 2, where it says poster flyers, I guess you could use that as a screen sheet of sorts. So now going ahead with page 5, chapter 1, called First Opportunity. You can see pretty much how the layout is going to be for the whole module. So on page 1, you can see that there's a brief description on what you can say to your players when they reach to the condominium where Caller is located. They can interact with Caller and ask some questions and do some small talk here and there. It's important that once you're here interacting with Caller, your players do their introductions. On the following page, on page 6, you can see a net architecture of the chip. It's not necessary to do this net architecture in particular. You can always do like electronic safety check and unveil the information inside of it. So I guess ideally you could start with just doing an electronic safety check and leave it at a DV pretty high, I would say either 17 or 18, and just go from there, see if they were able to unveil the information. Inside the chip, there's some blueprints from Militech. So if one of the players is a tech, they'll be interested to try it out and maybe manufacture it or make it or do whatever. So now going for chapter 2 on page 6. Welcome to Night City. So at this point, the players are going towards Club Atlantis, and they're going to be giving the chip to Trucker. So here you can do a few things if you like. I put some random encounters that if you want to implement on the way to Club Atlantis. So what you do is you roll 1d6, and then whatever number you get a random encounter. So for example, if you get 3, you get 2 booster gangers that will attempt to blow out the PC's car's tires. So after doing the random encounters in Night City or the combat zone, make sure the players do their driveland vehicle check if they do a counter with the booster gangers. If they attempt to sprint off or do some maneuvering, then it's important that they do the check in case of anything crazy happens. So once the players are inside Club Atlantis, there's a few things that the players can do or interact with other NPCs. I list out the different areas that the club has. We'll see later on that the map that I put in this module is not an accurate description or depiction. I'm sorry, it's not an accurate depiction of the club itself, but it's a map that you guys could use in your sessions. Also, one thing to note, I'm not sure if you guys already noticed, there's a few like silhouette characters that you see throughout the module where they have like one-liners or conversational lines that they can do interacting with the PCs. Well, you notice in the first page it was with Caller, and now here in page 7 you can see some lines that some random NPC will be doing to the PCs. So keep that in mind if you want to implement some lines into your play or give some inspiration. So I added also random encounters inside the club as well. You roll 1d6, and whatever number you get, a certain event happens. I added also different areas that you could hack into within the net architecture. So this is a good way that in case they want to be safe or they encounter with a lawman later on, they could hack into it and then control certain things in the club, like lighting, doors, elevators, appliances, music, and that sort of thing. So now we're gonna get to the part to meet Trucker, page 9. So there I put a brief description on meeting with Trucker and then seeing Trucker. Once you talk about the chip and what's inside of it and what the PC has done, if they did hack into it or not, the lawmen are gonna be appearing in the club. So at this point, once Trucker or the PCs notice, they're gonna want to get out of the club as soon as possible. Trucker will be aware, or he'll be nervous and probably thinking that the lawmen are looking for him. So he'll be a little, I guess, jittery with the whole situation. So he'll want to escape as soon as possible. Some operatives, they're going to be inside the club, and some are going to be outside. So obviously they're going to expect some people to escape if they're finding the right person inside. So one thing you gotta make sure is that you gotta try to be smart about the NPCs that you're playing. Try not to put all of them in one spot because they know that the PCs or someone in the club is gonna escape. So now getting to chapter 3, which is the last chapter of the module. So at this point, Trucker is gonna be escaping with or without the chip. Make sure to make it more as dramatic as possible. If Trucker didn't give the money to the PCs, the PCs wouldn't want to go with him. If Trucker doesn't have the chip, then the PCs want to make sure that they give the chip and get the money from Caller. So yeah, there's different ways that you can implement or you can activate this encounter with trucker. So yeah, so the llama are gonna have a ground car and an AV with them. So you're gonna have an AV and a ground car chasing the PCs and trucker. So the PCs could shoot up the ground car of the lawman or the AV. Ideally, the AV is not a good option to shoot at since it has a lot of hit points. They could get rid of the ground car of the lawman. That way, they have less trouble behind them. At this point, so I added a mechanic for the car chase. It's pretty simple. It only took like almost a column of the document. So you can see that I put a few bullet points and a few rules here and there on how to do the car chase mechanic. So essentially, just in basic terms, is basically you're gonna have 2 or 3 tokens of the cars they're gonna be using, and then you're just gonna leave them on the grid. So each square is gonna be 10 meters. So instead of each square being 2 meters, now it's gonna be 10 meters. And then you're gonna position those tokens at the appropriate distance where the PCs are and the lawmen are. And and then each party or the PCs and the NPCs, they're gonna roll for a drive land vehicle check, and depending on what maneuver they do, then the DV is gonna be more difficult and more higher. Anyway, in essence, is basically that if you succeed your check, you either stay in your square or you move up, and if the other fails, they either lose control or they move back, or they either lose control or stay in their square. And that's pretty much it. And it's an easy way to do it. There's a lot of ways of doing it, and I've seen a lot of other people in the community that has done different ways of doing the car chase. This is just a simple way that I've come up with. So if you have any other suggestions or feedback, then you can let me know. So now going to the final part, where at the end of the car chase, the AV hits on the side of a building, explodes, and you notice that at the end of the street, on the corner there's some boostergangers waiting for the PCs. So obviously the boostergangers had planned to blow up this AV, so they had this car chase in their watch for a while now. So at this point, I left it pretty open-ended, but in essence is the booster gangers or the primetime players will want the PCs to pay them, and the PCs decide whether to pay them, or they could help them, or they could escape or shoot them or whatever. The point is that they do encounter with them or engage with them. You're gonna have 6 street gangers coming up and helping the PCs out. So they're gonna be shooting at the primetime players, and they're gonna help them out. Obviously, 6 street gangers are not gonna expect anything in return, but they do expect something later on if they need some help. And again, I also put some bullet points to balance the party out. So if you have 4 PCs, there's gonna be 7 NPCs, 6 boosters, and 1 reclaimer chief. Obviously, you want to make it more difficult, they could also add 1 plus booster, or you're gonna make it less difficult, then you can just remove 1 booster. And that's pretty much it. So at the end of the document, you're gonna see the appendix with different resources. I left the design of the flyer there for a collar, and at the end you can see different maps, such as the net running grid, the Club Atlantis that I mentioned, which now that we're at this point, I only added the first floor of Club Atlantis. So I added the letters of the areas that you can see in the document. So I added a little brief description there if you need more info, that in this map is gonna be only with one floor. And I also hinted out that trucker is gonna be located at area C. So area C is gonna be at the bar area, not the lounge area, the bar area. So, and then the last map I have is the combat zone with the gangers. It's just one street, and the PCs can, do their encounters there. Then after that, you're gonna have your vehicle card that you can use during your session. So there you can have ready your SDP or your HP, your number of seats, and movement and costs. It's a little easier to have them ready on the side. That way you don't have to shuffle around and find any tokens or miniatures or whatever. So on the next page, you're gonna see the NPC cards from Collar, Trucker, the Lawman, and the Gangers. So this version you see here is the basic version. Later on, I'm gonna be posting the second version of Homecoming, where you see a more fleshed out NPC card with additional information such as cyberware and items. And these NPC cards were inspired by JonJon's video, specifically the 3 Goon Method. After watching his video, then I was a little inspired on doing like my own version of creating easy NPCs. I just added a little flair with the will and intelligence. That way you can give more character to your NPCs. Even though not all NPCs have to have character, but there's another way to have your more fleshed out characters in a more simple format. So at the end of the document, you're gonna see some credits and some NPC names that you could use during your campaign or during your one shot. And I also added some description on how to use the NPC cards, which we already talked about, which is pretty straightforward. And also what would happen if you abandon the job. And for the credits, then I just had to thank to Solution Maps on providing the maps that I added here. Check out his Patreon. He has great content there. And he's still pumping out, good content every month. If you want to download directly the maps from his Patreon, you could go to his page and see his other content. So yeah, that's it. I hope that wasn't too long. I hope I did good. So let me know in the comments if you have any feedback or any other info. If you want to see more of the overview of the other one-shots that I do, I'll make sure that I'll be more brief, I guess. So yeah, thanks again. So have a good one.